Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do have a revised agenda. The items with incorporating St. James Baptist and Hilton Head Prep have been removed from this agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Moved. Second. All in favor? We're good to go. Okay, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th. May I have a motion to approve those minutes? Approve. Second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Did staff have any amendments, any additional amendments to the agenda? I forgot to ask. We're good to go? All right. Well, here we go. The first on that agenda is unfinished business. As you recall, we tabled this at last month's meeting. This is a public hearing that requires the Planning Commission to make a decision on this application. This is PPR 001-035-2025, a public hearing request from Neil Ike with the town of Hilton Head Island for an application for public project review for the property identified on Beaufort County tax maps as parcel R550-014-000763-0000, also identified as 30 Arrow Road, for the development of a new pickleball facility on a town-owned parcel. At this point, we'll open the public hearing and ask Shay Farrar, Principal Planner, for the presentation.
Good
Shay.
afternoon, Commission members. Thank you, Shay Farrar, Principal Planner in Community Planning. Also here we have Neil Ike in from our Capital Projects Division, and Brian Eber available if there are questions regarding development review. Today I'm presenting the application as the Chairman described. These applications are for a review of the compatibility with the comprehensive plan to consider whether the location, character, and extent of the proposed development is consistent with or conflicts with the plan's goals and implementation strategies. The purpose of the proposed pickleball complex is to improve the recreational opportunities on the island and better align with national trends and the clearly identified need for additional pickleball facilities that's been identified through our planning process. The proposed location, as we reviewed at the last meeting, is Crossings Park along Arrow Road. And you can see that here. So for a little bit of additional background, the history of this project is extensive. It began in early 2023. Town Council conducted workshops on February 14th and June 14th when this site was specifically evaluated for a pump track facility. By January of 2024, in a Town Council workshop, the Arrow Road site was formally identified for pickleball. It was reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Commission on March 14th, and then again by Town Council on May 21st, further establishing the policy support for this project. The project was then added into fiscal year 25 capital improvements program and FY 26 budget cycle as well. On November 19th, we presented the application to the Planning Commission, and at that time it was tabled. Since that time, staff has been able to make positive progress on the project. But to get started, I'd like to just present you with what we initially brought forward to the commission. Our initial approval was a clubhouse facility, 20 total courts, 18 tournament size and 2 ADA elite size courts, 105 parking spaces, stormwater improvements, and pathway improvements along Arrow Road. Since that time, the project has been further refined, so I'd like to introduce Neil Ike, who will come up and explain a little bit more details about the project. On December 12th, we met with the Palmetto Bay Villas Board at their annual meeting and have made further modifications to our proposed project to incorporate requests from that meeting.
Thank you, Shay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil Ike. I'm Senior Project Manager with the town, specifically the Capital Projects Department. And I just wanted to speak to you a little bit today, as Shay noted, about what we have done since the previous meeting, the meetings that we've had with Palmetto Bay Villas residents, community at large, and changes, refinements, design updates to the project based on that feedback to try and keep this project moving forward and make everyone as happy as we possibly can. So I think last go round, a big point of discussion was community involvement in the design process, community feedback. In this case, possibly a lack thereof, since some of these initial meetings that Shay had touched upon back in 23 and 24, and what had really occurred since that time to get feedback from the surrounding community in the design of the project. So our meeting with the Palmetto Bay Villas group on Friday the 12th, this was at their annual meeting, was to review a few different concerns that had been raised at the previous Planning Commission meeting, specifically being noise, lighting, access, and just general planning removal, natural protection buffer in that wooded area abutting Palmetto Bay Villas, and how we were going to sort of balance all of those factors together. So I guess some of the biggest developments to come out of that meeting was discussing hours of operation. There had been initial concern that this facility would run until well after dark, even in the summer, potentially to 10 p.m. We discussed hours of operation for the facility being from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and that if those hours were to be extended or even from, say, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., the courts that are nearest to Palmetto Bay Villas, those 3 or 4 courts, would be shuttered so that the majority of the playing would be as far away from the residential complex as possible. We also discussed the concerns about security. Would there be access into the Palmetto Bay Villas complex via the fence surrounding the pickleball complex? You know, how would we control access? So we discussed measures such as the gate that will be closed every evening for access into the parking area, the central entry and exit access into the actual pickleball courts facility itself through the facility that will be closed and locked every day at the end of business hours. This is a managed facility, so there will be staff at all hours during hours of operation who will be overseeing what's happening and then locking down the building and closing off access at 7 p.m. During those days, and it seemed that those concerns were satisfied with that discussion. And most importantly, it was discussion of the buffer between the property line of this facility, the fence line and the court line, and the property line of Palmetto Bay Villas. So discussion with the residents and members that were there. One of the first points that we touched upon was removal of Court 1, which is the court nearest to the property line, and incorporating that design revision into the pickleball complex. So as you can see here, I'll back up one more. This site layout that we're looking at here is the original facility design. So you can see that we have Court 1 right against the fence line, the buffer, and then an easement for public service district that runs along the property line for Palmetto Bay Villas. What we have moved towards, and a design change that we're still refining, is eliminating Court 1, eliminating essentially a row of 8 parking spaces that shifts the parking lot farther towards Arrow Road to sort of coincide with the removal of that court along the fence line, and essentially increasing separation between the courts, the parking area, and the Palmetto Bay Villas property. So right now we have a pretty substantial undisturbed natural buffer running along that easement between the Palmetto Bay Villas property and the Arrow Road property. And our goal with this is to leave that undisturbed natural buffer undisturbed, and to allow that to be the most formidable buffer that we have for sound, light, all of those things. And it seems that based on our feedback at the meeting when this idea was first put forth, before we had really modified the site layout plan to reflect this change, that this change was agreeable with all parties as a great sort of middle ground to keep as many courts as we could in the facility, but also increasing that separation and providing a larger buffer for the residents at Palmetto Bay Villas. Another discussion point was lighting. So, of course, not just sound, but we're going to have light poles in the parking lot on the courts themselves, and what sort of light pollution would residents be dealing with, if any at all. So one of the things that was reviewed was a photometric plan. Let me see if I can find that somewhere in here. And it's a little difficult to read on the PDF here, the PowerPoint, but the long and short of this photometric plan is to show that due to shielding on the lights, their positioning, the design of the lights themselves, that outside of the actual footprint of the fence line of the facility, that our lumens were down to half a foot candle, almost to the point of being a very low pathway lighting. So centralized focus lighting on the courts themselves. Courts only operational until 7 p.m., which in the wintertime you would have lights up and on for roughly an hour and a half. Summertime, kind of a moot point since it stays light outside until 8 o'clock, and then lights turned off. And I think between the design of the lighting and the hours of operation, that we've tried to mitigate the light pollution concerns as much as we possibly could. And that seemed to be agreeable to everyone at the annual meeting as well. So that's sort of 30,000 foot view of what was discussed at the Friday meeting with the community members. Those are some of the updated exhibits that we brought to sort of explain more about the project and the design, and then also touching on design changes made that are still being detailed, but the overarching idea of eliminating the court, shifting the parking lot, and increasing that separation and buffer between the two properties. And with that, just wanted to open it up to any questions from all of y'all.
Any questions, initial questions before we turn it over to public comment? I'd like to ask you.
So one of the things I saw, and it was proposed installation of sound attenuation matting.
Sure.
Tell me, where is that matting going to go, and what actual purpose is it for?
Okay. All right. So, and thank you for reminding me about that. So this exhibit right here, the fencing plan, it may be difficult for you to see, but this purple fence line that's running along here, this was is to receive the sound attenuation mat, which there's a elevation of it here, essentially hangs on the fence. All of the literature and specifications that we've seen say that it can reduce the decibels up to 35. This, of course, we brought this to the meeting this past Friday, and since having those discussions and reducing the court count and moving over, this would almost be, in our opinion, supplemental to the buffer and sound attenuation properties of that undisturbed natural planting buffer that we're going to maintain.
So
and
it's really
increase.
more like an acoustic fence versus,
Exactly.
you know, I think of a mat, I think of something on the
Yeah,
ground, which
exactly.
typically
So-
doesn't.
So it's essentially a
handle-
mat turned vertically. And it's designed exactly for this type of installation to hang along the fence line and catch sound as much as possible.
How many feet will it be, sir?
So our fence line is 8 feet.
And the
at
height
this point.
of the acoustic fencing?
Yeah, it's an 8-foot section there. Yeah, 8 feet high.
So I've learned everything I can from Google.
Right.
So, and I'd like to think I did a little better than that, but I've noticed one of the comments I kept seeing was that acoustic fencing typically has to be tall enough. And one of the numbers I keep seeing repeatedly is at least 10 feet and sometimes 12. Is there a reason that this can't be higher?
So I believe that we are constrained by the height of the fence that we are allowed to put on this property, or else we would like to make it taller, because to your point, that seems like a simple, obvious solution to increase the sound attenuation properties. But I do believe that we are constrained at 8 feet. I will get with Brian Eber and some of the folks on the design team to explore that a little bit further to see if we do have some options for increasing the fence height, even if it's just along that edge, sort of that U shape there, to try and trap as much sound up against the property line and sort of rebound that, for lack of a better term. So duly noted.
I want to know, how does this project, specifically the number of pickleball courts, compare with other pickleball courts in the town, either public or private, if you're aware of those?
Sure. So, and Shay, correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the exhibits in here sort of a count or addresses pickleball currently on the island? Oh, clicking too fast. Okay. Now, of course, this doesn't seem to provide a court count per location, which I know is kind of more of what you're interested in. But you know, here, 86 courts across 17 locations. So if we do a rough average there, this would certainly feel like more courts in a particular location than some of these other spots. But you know, I think between the management of the natural buffer and some of the other design changes that have been made to sort of reduce the impact on the surrounding neighbors as much as possible, that this is certainly doable, even though more courts than you might see at some of the other locations on the island.
May I invite public comment before we have any more questions? Is it okay? That'd be all right? Okay. All right, let me invite the public, anybody that wants to talk on this subject. Again, try to hold your comments to 3 minutes. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself to the.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alex Cruden, a resident of Sea Pines. I've appeared before you before. As someone who has worked for years representing pickleball players, working with the town toward this project, I first want to say I greatly appreciate the efforts that we've just seen here, because we want to be good neighbors, absolutely. So I appreciate the town's willingness to continue with this, to make it better. What's been outlined here looks great to me. I would like to add one thing about the numbers that are before you now. The 42 public courts, many of them are open to the public for considerable fees. The ones that are low cost are the 12 that are administered by the Island Rec Center. And the Island Rec Center, as I understand it, would be administering what's been put before you here. There's a real distinction in that. It's an important one, I think. So again, I thank you for your consideration for this. I really hope that we can go forward. It would mean a lot to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Beth Petro, a resident of Palmetto Bay Villas. I just want to say thank you to Neil and his team, Shay as well, for coming to our annual meeting. I think the revisions that were put before you are very much in line with what we discussed at that meeting, and I think it will benefit Palmetto Bay Villas. One of our residents, if you see her front door is right up against that fence line. So eliminating Court 1 would go a huge way to controlling that noise and light that could potentially come on. We were excited to hear that this is going to be a maintained facility. It's our understanding that the gate will be locked nightly and it's not going to be open to the public. Somebody will be manning it from the Island Rec Center at all times, which does alleviate a lot of the questions that we had as far as safety. So as long as all of that is as presented is what goes in, I think it could be a benefit to the island as well as not interrupt Palmetto Bay Villas terribly. So I'm encouraged by what we see here and appreciate the changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back up to the dais. Ms. Hewitt?
I have a question about the pathway that you show. It starts at Palmetto Bay Road and goes around. My question is that just a sidewalk that connects to an existing sidewalk, or is that a sidewalk and a bike path?
So right now it is just it would just be a paved pathway, and that design is still being finalized. We've sort of had a laser focus, for lack of a better term, on the pickleball facility itself and sort of the surrounding structures. But yes, long story short, it would be a paved pathway connecting to Bristol Arena around the corner.
So one of the things I'd like for you to focus on is if it is amenable to bikes, which any paved pavement in Hilton Head is amenable to bikes. We've all seen them going everywhere. Yeah. Is that you find a way, because that sidewalk is going to end at one point. You find a way for them to cross the street or something to get to another paved area.
We'd be tying into the crosswalk that's farther down in Helmsman Way. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, duly noted. Thank you.
Neil, you mentioned that the operating hours are supposed to end at 7 o'clock, and that seems very reasonable. Let's say 4 or 5 years down the road, court usage is so extensive that they need to expand the amount of time that's available. What thought has been given to if that should have to be considered to expand those hours beyond 7 p.m.?
Okay, well, hopefully the folks at Island Rec will be prepared for a spirited discussion about that topic at that time. But sort of kidding aside, we understand that this 9 to 7, this is our recommendation based on discussion with Palmetto Bay Villas that we think is fair and reasonable to get the most use out of the courts without negatively impacting the quality of life of those nearby. And I think that with most of the things that we build, the capacity that it's serving is probably already met by the time we cut the ribbon on it and open it to the public, and then the need and desire only grows from that point. So that's a long way of saying that's above my pay grade, I guess, to address those concerns. But I have the utmost faith that if that time does come and those discussions arise, that they'll be handled in the same way that the design process up till now has been, with a thoughtful balance between all parties. Of course.
Thank you, Neil. I think that I'm glad that you spent the time with the Palmetto Bay people. And I think this looks like a great improvement.
Thank you.
So just a couple things come to mind after Bruce mentioned the operating hours. So while it's not directly in our purview, what I would recommend is that Palmetto Bay Villa Owners Association, it's clear how any changes to the operations would be made. For example, the operating hours, that it's not just up to Island Rec. So typically, this is kind of like a little bit different than the beaches, because there's not a lot of input into the beaches when they open and close. So this is a little bit new, and I don't know how things operate at Chaplin, but who would make the final decision? I don't need to know that now, but I think Palmetto Bay should understand that and understand how they would be brought into the process, that's very clear. And The other thing in terms of process that I think I would recommend is that we're taking our best shot here at hours of operating and lighting issues. And again, of my pay grade about how the process would work to get input from Palmetto Bay, but it should not just be the pickleball contingent sort of driving that. You do have residents there. And when we have laid out the strategic plan for the town, we talk about intensity of use. And if we're finding it's more than we envisioned, there should be a clear process before this is all open for public. But that's just my 2 cents.
All right, any other
Thank you.
questions, comments?
Frank would like to speak
So,
from Island Rec.
those hours of operations are really fine, sitting back there with our staff members looking at that. And moving forward, if there needs to be some type of agreement with a villa, that'd be great too. This is a luxury. We're gonna get 17 courts. And so I think that having those hours of operations will work just fine, I think. And we know even with the growth of the sport, I think the capacity here, we should be able to manage without going beyond those hours of operation. That's just our opinion as we looked at it, adding staff and closing the gates was one of our recommendations way early on. So I think that some of the things that the folks over at the Villa have recommended are certainly within the operation thoughts that we had from the beginning. So that's where we're at, so.
Thank you, and for the record,
Yeah.
that was Frank Sewell,
Oh,
the
sorry.
Director of Island Rec. Okay, yes. Mr. Redmond?
Removing court 1, Sean, what now is the distance between 2 and the nearest neighbor, please?
So let's see, of course, if I'm able to zoom in here. The way that I want to. So we're in the neighborhood of 150 feet at this point. We've increased the buffer. We have a new distance between the edge of court 2 and the fence line with the acoustic mats. And then through the natural buffer, the 20-foot public service district easement, and then the property line and buffer that exists, planning buffer, natural buffer on the Palmetto Bay Villas side. So
It's-
we
it's
have
a
a
good-
lot of different components
good
comprising
bit more than
that
100
large
then.
buffer. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you.
All right, well, I would certainly like to thank the residents of Palmetto Bay Villas for your input with staff to make this a better project, so thank you very much for that. And if I can get a motion?
To approve the project as amended.
Get a second. Second, Mr. Redmond. Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Dubois?
I would just suggest that we approve the alternate plan with the 1 fewer court than the 20 courts. I think the 19 courts is more advantageous to the community as a whole.
Is that the plan that's been presented?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, that's
reflecting the 19.
I'll amend my vote, I agree to amend my motion to
It's 17 tournament and 2 ADA.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other items, discussions? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Great, thank you very much. Thank you, audience. Next up is public comment for non-agenda items. Do we have any?
No, sir.
No public comment. Commission business, we have none. Chairman's report, I have none. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see you next year.